Something smells like string cheese. Hello and welcome to a Talk Lit Get Hit bonus chapter, the little book chats in between the big ones.
We'll talk about reading, authors, and have discussions with people who, like us, can't shut up about books.
We might get sidetracked and talk about literally anything else,
But this is a bonus chapter we wrote just for you. Hello and welcome to an extra special Talk Lit Get Hit bonus chapter. You're joined by Talk Lit Get Hit hosts Bridget and Laura. Hello, Bridget.
Hello, Laura.
This episode, we are talking lit and shit with you. We put a call out on Instagram for your hot takes, unpopular opinions, hate mail, love notes, and advice seeking, and once again, you didn't let us down.
Some of these opinions are about books and some of them are about other things. Whatever we're going to be talking about, we're probably going to spoil it. We have put timestamps and content descriptors in the show notes. If there's something you want to avoid, check out the show notes and plan your journey accordingly.
This time around, we forgot to ask people if they would like to be named and shamed or if they would prefer to remain anonymous. So for legal reasons, all of these opinions will be anonymous this time around. All right, I think we just have to get right into it. Our first hot take is an especially relevant one. Goodreads is such a low budget app considering it's Amazon. Give us half-star ratings. How do you feel, Bridget?
I agree. Half-star ratings, not the top of my list, but I think that is a good call. I think people have been screaming out for half-star ratings for a very, very long time. I think they can improve on the interface of the app, purely aesthetic reasons. I think they can improve on the statistics in the app. How do you feel about Goodreads?
I think I have been using Goodreads since I was like 18 or 19 years old. And as far as I'm concerned, the interface has remained exactly the same that whole time. I think it could use a few extra features, but I actually really like the kind of utilitarian functionality of it. I like that it means business. I'm not really looking to a book app for more social media. So I'm thinking things like Fable, which is the newest one that's sort of come out. It's like a bit too social, a bit too influencery for me. But yes, stats would be great. I love the ones that you get from Storygraph, and I would like a half-star rating. It doesn't bother me to just have to write 3.5 stars in a review. I would love the option to pause the book as well.
It is owned by Amazon. That is the real problem for me. I am not into supporting Amazon or Jeff Bezos in any way. Unfortunately, this app does have its hold on me. I would love it if everybody would migrate over to Storygraph because that's the only thing that's sort of keeping me in Goodreads. I like seeing what everybody else is reading. I like reading their reviews, and I just find that part of Goodreads is better than Storygraph for me at the moment, but also because not as many people use Storygraph. I think I have maybe 4 or 5 friends on Storygraph and I have about 90 on Goodreads.
I use Storygraph as well and I hugely prefer it, but same as you. Don't have any friends. Get way better recommendations from Storygraph. The algorithms are a little bit more varied. I guess the suggestions are a lot more diverse than what you get on Goodreads. I think the interface is a happy medium between Fable and Goodreads.
There has been a little bit of controversy surrounding Fable over the last few days, especially on TikTok. As you update your bookshelves, Fable gives you an AI summary of what kind of reader you are, and it looks at your most recent reads and it spits out a quirky little paragraph about what kind of reader they think you are. Unfortunately, there was a user of Fable who was given a recommendation to not forget about the white authors of the world because the AI thought that she had been reading too diversely.
Yeah, that was the book influencer Tiana Trammell. There was also a writer named Danny Groves whose summary asked if he's ever in the mood for a straight cis white man's perspective after labeling him a diversity devotee. There's actually a very funny headline for an article from Wired. It says, a book app used AI to roast its users. It went anti-woke instead.
I didn't like this AI summary it was giving me because when I was trialing the app, I had just finished reading all of Twilight and then I read Bride, and then Fable was painting me as this person who has a vampire fetish. And I found that personally insulting. But a lot of people have now deleted their accounts. I mean, I was happy to join in. I don't like the way that AI is heading. I don't like that future. Also a little bit less important than the reasons that other people are deleting their Fable account. But I didn't like the fact that you can't edit your activity on a book for previous days. So often I will fall asleep without updating, and I'll just do it the next morning on Storygraph and I will backdate it. But you can't do that on Fable, so you lose your streak. I couldn't find a way around that, and I thought that was a bit silly.
Yeah, so much going for it, and yet can't even do that simple task.
No. If we're looking at all of this information, Storygraph is the one that I think we all should be using, because Fable has its AI drama. Goodreads is majority owned by Amazon. However, Storygraph is a Black woman-owned independent company founded by CEO Nadia Odeneo in 2019. And I think anything that takes us away from the monopoly that Amazon has on our society as a whole is a good thing in my books.
It is a good thing. Actually, something that is astonishing to me every time I hear it is that Storygraph only has like 2 or 3, I think, employees. So Nadia, I think, is the only developer that they have. And then there's 2 other employees. And when you consider how it is, what it's achieved, like the popularity it's gained, it's pretty astonishing. I don't understand why nobody else has made an investment or purchased it. Maybe they have been approached and Nadia has reasons for not wanting to go down that road, but everybody join Storygraph and be our friend so that we can foremost be our friend, but like also let's support them.
Yeah, mass migration from Goodreads to Storygraph. We're here for it. Our next submission is a very simple one. It's 1 sentence. Colleen Hoover can get in the bin.
We've only done 2 of these episodes, but we have had Colleen Hoover slander both times. And look, I have only read 1 book by Colleen Hoover. I've read Verity, but having existed online over the past couple of years, I think I've seen and heard enough about Colleen Hoover and her works to understand that she's an author that I'm not really interested in platforming or hearing any more from. And I think the same can be said for authors like Rebecca Yarros or maybe Sarah J. Maas.
I feel the same. I think this podcast has been a real learning journey for us. When we started this podcast, it was, the end of 2022. And obviously our first 4 books were the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. So later on in 2023, we also read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and when it was pretty fresh from publication. I think at that time we had started to hear a few things about Rebecca Yarros, and we could see her support of war, I guess. I think she's a military wife. At the time, we were sort of tossing up whether to include something about that in the episode, but ultimately we didn't know if we could say it in like a smart enough way. We're also a little bit more brave now. I think we've been doing this for a few years and we feel a bit more confident in our opinions. We've just learnt a little bit more.
I'm a big fan of changing your mind when you learn new information. So, I mean, I guess it's not to say that my stance on these authors won't ever change again. And it's not to say that I wouldn't maybe get these books from the library or that I've burnt them and disposed of them from my shelf or anything like that. But the premise of our show initially was to talk shit about the books that the internet loves. And what came up again and again was like the same 5 authors, the same style or genre of writing. Within that handful alone, I think there are other authors we can discuss, other books we can platform. And it's also not an especially nice feeling for us to pick something that from the outset we know we're going to hate and criticize and
shit on someone's favorite book.
Yeah, like we still, yes, that still happens, but I think we've kind of evolved a little bit beyond wanting to do that. We've realized that, I don't know, there are better things we can put out into the world.
Yeah. Like a lot of people are really holding on to these books, but they're just not that good anyway.
No.
Like they're not. So there's no real loss.
That's kind of what I mean. Like to me, they're one of many. So why would I indirectly give them a platform and promote them or any sort of airtime or acknowledgement when there's just another book that could take their place? Our intention last year when we decided we'd cover a different genre each month was to hopefully diversify the book recommendations that we received or the authors or stories that we were platforming. And I mean, it didn't necessarily happen. I think definitely we live in a bit of an echo chamber in terms of our book recommendations. But we moved away a bit. So that was a good thing.
Yeah, not every book was a romance about 2 straight white people.
We discussed this a little bit in our previous Talk Lit With Us episode. Again, if you love Colleen Hoover, if Colleen Hoover books get you reading, if it's something that helps you unwind, if it's something that helps you connect with people, whatever, like whatever joy you find in that, good for you. Probably won't ever discuss her books on our show.
No, I think we've gone past the, should we? If we'll do it if enough people say. I think we're just like, nah.
Joke's over. Yeah. No more teasing.
It's not like we were ever going to follow through anyway.
You're teasing me. Against all odds, we've been asked for some life advice. This question is, should I move to a city this year? Bit of a tricky one with not a lot of context, but what's your take on this situation, Bridget?
Well, I think it depends on what kind of city. So I live in a city that is not a big city. Laura lives in a big city. I would say one of the best things about me living in this city is the commute time. So it takes me probably less than 5 minutes to get to work, maybe 10 on a busy day. How long do you think on average it takes you to get to work?
I think it takes me about half an hour to an hour to get to work.
I can't imagine that at all.
There was a time where I couldn't too.
I think you got to weigh up things like that. I mean, if I lived in Brisbane, there would be way more things to do. But I kind of like living in a smaller city where, you know, it doesn't take that long to get downtown. You don't have to plan your travel. You can just drive or you can walk or things like that. But yeah, there's not that much to do.
Yeah, there's lots of factors. I mean, I think it depends on so many things, like the type of person you are and what you hope to get out of moving to a city, what kind of lifestyle you'd like to have. Can you afford to support that lifestyle? You know, like when I picture living in the city, I think about like catching the city cat and going out to nice restaurants and like riding my bike on bike paths and that kind of thing. But the reality is that those things are largely accessible when you live in an inner city environment, which is not very affordable for most people at the moment. And so I think there's like lots of exciting things, lots of opportunities, lots of new people to meet. And I don't always embody this advice, but I do believe that change is as good as a holiday. And really, what do you have to lose?
It's true.
You can always come back, especially if where you're living currently, you have some sort of foundation, friends or family that will, you know, support you when you come back saying, things didn't work out. I think go for it.
Yeah, I mean, go for it. Why not? Who cares? You're right. If you don't like it, you can move back.
Yeah.
There's always someone on Facebook being like, room to rent in Paddington. Just try that out for a few months. 6 months.
Everybody has that person on their Instagram that's like looking for a room in Fitzroy and then like looking for a room in Bondi.
Like, fully furnished.
Weren't you just living in Mullumbimby?
The next one that we have is in a similar vein. It's, should I quit my job? And I am a firm believer in quitting your job. I've never done it.
Not for me.
But I'm dishing this advice out nearly to every single person I talk to. They're like, I hate my job. I'll just quit.
Yeah. I agree. I have never regretted quitting a job. I have quit a couple of jobs. I think the moment you think to yourself, should I quit my job? You're done for. It's all downhill from there.
I think about it a lot, not in any serious way. Just before we went to this bakery and I was like, I wonder how much bakers earn. And I saw they didn't earn as much as me and I was like, oh, well, there goes that dream.
There goes that dream.
I feel like I've become accustomed to a lifestyle with the holidays that I get as a teacher and regular pay that I don't think I could exchange for anything other than full-time podcasting.
Please.
This is manifesting. I identify as a podcaster. Thank you, James Clear. Do you have any advice of how to quit or like what steps they could take before they quit?
If you have a secure job that doesn't make your life absolutely horrendous to go to every day, I think stick it out, explore opportunities if they're available. Sometimes maybe you just need like to work at a different location or work in a different role. I think like sometimes you owe it to yourself if you're on the fence to just have a little try of something new. Quitting jobs sucks. I used ChatGPT to quit my job because I didn't know what to say. But when it's done, it's done. And I think the feeling of relief and elation, even if it's not the worst situation, like the feeling of excitement and renewal is second to none. And I just think, consider all of the bitter, sad people that stay in jobs complaining about those jobs, making their friends' lives miserable complaining about their jobs, and still persisting and being in that environment. If you have the means, if you have the opportunity to get out of it, I say why not?
Or you can take a sabbatical, which seems very fancy, but I've seen a few people take sabbaticals lately, and I mean, it does seem like a thing a rich person would do, but...
Yeah, I saw this meme the other day. It was probably a reel because that's my thing now, but it was like Elon Musk talking to Leonardo DiCaprio, and Elon Musk was like pretty animated and Leonardo did not look that engaged. And the caption was like, me in heaven talking about how bad my work's HR policy was to the man from the Stone Age who got run over by a mammoth.
So everything in perspective.
Yeah.
Just quit it.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Moving away a little bit from the life advice, we have another submission that says, my fave part of BookTok at this moment is Jodi Picoult. Oh, I don't know if I said that right.
She had a video.
She had a video. And actually, I did a creative writing degree. And for years and years, I thought it was Jodi Picoult.
Same.
And then someone, like a mature age student, but like the kind of cool, mysterious one that's like not too much older, but a bit older, and you like really want to be them. Don't know if you had any of those in your course, but there are a few in mine that had come back to like do poetry or something. And she said something about Jodi Picoult. And I was like, oh my God, idiot. Jokes. I knew that all along. And for years, I've persisted in saying that. But then very recently, I saw the woman herself doing a video on the pronunciation of her name, and I think I still had it wrong.
Let's see. Straight from Jodi P's mouth.
Thank you for 250,000 followers. For those of you who are new to following me, I am Jodi Picoult, author of...
Pico.
Did I get it right?
Is that what you were saying? I've already forgotten. Pico.
Have you been seeing any of Jodi Picoult on TikTok?
I have seen a few of her videos. I saw her a lot last year around the election time where there was a controversy about book banning, and all those people on TikTok were saying, reading isn't political. And she had that great comeback of talking about every single one of her books that had a political lens. Have you seen her on TikTok much?
I've seen pretty much the same as you. I will say that it really made me want to read her books. It's nice to have the inverse instead of finding out like shitty, problematic things about authors that make you like sad to have ever read their books. It's nice to be like, I didn't think that I cared about My Sister's Keeper, but here I am.
So have you read any of her books before?
I don't think so.
I read one of her books in 2023. I think it's the only one that I've read, Mad Honey. And that was co-authored by Jennifer Finney Boylan, who I think is a trans woman.
Co-authored? That's so interesting.
That was a mystery thriller, and it had a trans main character. I enjoyed it. It wasn't one of my favourite books of the year. It felt a bit like a book that your mum would have read in book club in 2005, like that sort of vibe. But I'm not really familiar with her other work. I haven't seen My Sister's Keeper other than just on TikTok.
Yeah, that's always been my impression of her work as well, which is probably why I've steered clear of it. Maybe that will have to be one of my reading goals for the year. I am trying to get off the new release cycle.
That is true. Our next submission is a bit of a long one, so I'm just going to read it verbatim to get the full effect. Someone has been putting rubbish in my bin and it's pissing me off, but I really don't want to be a psycho, but I want them to stop. What should I do? Put a note on my bin or put notes in everyone's letterboxes or something? Help.
Please, everyone, only ever ask us questions like this.
I love this. There's a guy in my neighborhood on like bin day who skateboards through the streets, and I'm not sure if he's collecting cans out of people's bins for the, 10 cents back or whatever, or if he's looking for a bin that he can surreptitiously put his rubbish in, because he's got a bag of something and he's always just like cruising around looking for someone's bin.
Rubbish vigilante.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm also not really sure what to do with this problem.
I cry.
Is it smelly rubbish? Is it making your life worse? Or is it just like petty but it's annoying you?
I don't know how to answer this. I think something I struggle with is confrontation. And it's kind of like that episode of Flight of the Conchords where that guy at the fruit stand, I think, is being racist to Brett and Jermaine.
Yeah. About the apples.
Yeah. And when they ask their friend what to do, he's like, what do you normally do when someone's bullying you? And Brett's like, think mean thoughts about them, which is what my normal response is. But then their alternative is get him sent to Alcatraz.
Yes.
And so I'm like, that's the sliding scale I'm working with because I don't know what the in-between is.
You could go full psycho and put a lock on your bin, or you could do what those freaky people do at the airport and wrap your bin in like Glad wrap. Until it's time to put rubbish and you just like slash it with a Stanley knife. Or you could just get a bin bag, an empty bin bag, blow it up like a balloon and just put it in there so the bin appears to be full. So then there's just no room.
Oh, something good could be if you knew who they were and you could somehow get a photo of them, just like print off photos of them and put them on the inside of the lid of the bin. And like
idea.
Not psycho in the sense that you're mad, but in the sense that you're terrifying.
I think that's what you should do.
Like, use my bin, be prepared to die in like a really sinister way.
I don't think there is any world where you should have a conversation with this person. I think you should print out photos.
Another problem solved. Our next submission is something I remember feeling quite passionately about at the time. And now, several years later, can barely remember anything about, but it is that Tamlin deserves a redemption arc. Feyre is one of the most insufferable leads ever written.
Just forget about 20 minutes ago when we were like, we're not going to be platforming Sarah J. Maas anymore. Just one more time, okay?
This is critique.
Yes. I agree. I can't remember a thing about it.
I had a little Google before, so spoiler alert for the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, the entire thing. But he's a love interest for a hot minute. His bride gets stolen away. He's sort of secretly been plotting against her with someone, I can't remember who. He hates poor people, but then in the end, he ends up sort of not being as much of an antagonist and sort of helps resurrect
her man.
But then at the end of the book, his life is in ruins and like his whole court and kingdom have abandoned him. And then in the stupid little fan fiction Christmas one, Rhysand goes to Tamlin and he's like, please forgive me. He's been like wandering around in beast form.
He's rotting out.
Yeah, he's rotting out in the spring court. And Rhysand's like, I don't even have to thank you for saving my life. You're a piece of shit. You're worthless, essentially. And I think that's pretty much where his story ends.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in reading another book that's redemption for him. I just think she should have done a better job at redemption for him in this series.
I think that's correct. Yes.
And I think I can tie this into Feyre being the worst character ever because I wholeheartedly agree. And I think that we should have spent less time focusing on her and how she just ran. But we should have focused on like a bit of a bromance or like a mutual respect and understanding forming between Rhysand and Tamlin.
Or even some sort of forgiveness arc between Lucien and Tamlin. That would have been good as well.
Yeah.
Because I feel like poor little Lucien he's marooned.
Tamlin's just like one of those sniveling little worm-ridden dogs in like a gutter in Romania or something.
And Rhysand is just a bat that's carrying some sort of transmittable disease. The next one that we have is an unpopular opinion, and it is that this person doesn't really like Normal People by Sally Rooney. Now, we were really on one in our Sally Rooney episode. We know everything and our opinions are right, but I mean, I don't know what was wrong with us that day. Was that the day we recorded 50 Shades of Grey?
We were really riled up. I actually started to feel really, really stressed and panicked about that the other day. It's funny that you were saying earlier in this episode that we're a lot braver now because I listened to the Sally Rooney one not long ago and was like, why did we leave all this in? We're so decisive.
It's a learning curve.
Temper yourself.
I do really love Normal People. It was one of the best books that I read last year. And I know that you really love Normal People as well. How do you feel about this person saying they don't really like it?
I have no feelings about this person saying they don't really like it. There's so many popular books that I don't really like. Like we've literally just talked so much.
Literally made a whole podcast talking about how we don't like other people's favourite books.
Yeah, we just, in this very episode, dragged the whole A Court of Thorns and Roses series through the mud. It's the premise of the show.
Sometimes I have a hard time remembering that my opinion is an opinion and not fact. Like it is something I'm actively working on. Like I just can't physically understand why people would think a different way to me, but I'm aware of it. I'm working through it. And actually this doesn't hurt me at all. So maybe I'm growing as a person.
I think I'm growing too, because through doing the podcast, I think I've managed to strengthen my own convictions just a touch. I was thinking that in the life and death episode. I think it was the first time that you and I have disagreed.
And we didn't like sway towards each other's opinion.
Yeah. I was able to understand your point of view and see what you were saying. It's not like we were having some like huge divisive discussion, but I think past me would have been like, you know what? You're right. I'm wrong.
I hate it.
I don't know what I was thinking. Dick's on me, huh?
So long story short, go for it.
Yeah,
It's fine.
in the most sincere way possible. Good for you.
I take back any rude thing I said in the other episode when I was really feeling it.
I think we might have said like grow a brain or something.
Get a hobby.
Just close your ears. Grow up.
Do you actually read every single quotation mark? I don't think you do. What's wrong with us? People change, people grow.
It's like so recent.
I know. It's like 2 months ago.
Our last submission for this episode brings us back to a topic that we know and love. This hot take, Eclipse is the best book in the Twilight series. I think as someone who has very recently reread the saga, it's only right that you take the wheel on this one.
You know what? I'm not agreeing, but I would say that in a few years I might get there, because this last reread was probably the most interested I've ever been in Eclipse. I can't put my finger on what that was. It just felt like something new. That actually shocked me quite a bit. So I don't know, maybe in a few years' time it will overtake Twilight and New Moon.
forbid.
I'm not sure, but I doubt it. How about you? How do you feel about Eclipse?
I don't ever really see Eclipse rising through the ranks. I was trying to remember how I ranked them at the time of our episodes, and I think it was in publication order. I think Twilight's my favourite, then New Moon. I love Sad Bella. I love Edward being gone. I love Jacob when he's a little bit sweeter. I hate Eclipse. Most of all, I think my problem with it is the way that Stephanie Meyer writes Jacob and Edward treating Bella. Both abominable. And the way that Bella accepts or takes that treatment of her. Not a fan. It's such a like bratty, mopey, like horny teenage book. And I think I loved it at the time, but now not so much.
I think there's something wrong with me because I didn't find Edward's behaviour as despicable this time. So I don't know what that says about me. But
Well, in our episode I said I was fine with him watching her asleep. So I'm not one to preach.
I'm happy that you think Eclipse is the best book. It is a very hot take.
Those are all the submissions we have time for in this episode, but we love the chance to chat with you and share our thoughts. You are all truly hilarious and unhinged, and the world deserves to know. You can message us on Instagram or email us anytime you have something to share. If you do take our advice and things go awry, we were joking and you fell for it.
Sucks to be you. That's the end of this Talk Lit Get Hit bonus chapter. Next month we're reading The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Amas. Have your say on what we read next by keeping an eye on the link in our show notes and on our socials. Make sure you subscribe to the show, and if you want to be on the same page as us, follow us at talklit.gethit on Instagram and TikTok.